I just hit it.
Hey, I was trying to make the analogy last time that we are like moths hitting up against a light bulb.
That we are like people in general or us personally.
Us trying to read through Ecclesiastes, but then I comforted myself. I consoled myself with the idea that well, at least you're reading it. it's
Yeah,
not
that's true.
it's not a total loss if you're reading it out loud.
Yeah, I do actually need to talk to Jacob about it more because what he said about that Abel thing really put a whole new spin on it for me. That's one thing I've been ruminating over that for a
I
long
still don't
time
know if
now.
I fully appreciate that, except that yes, it's fleetingness. Uh, but I can't map necessarily the story of Abel onto the contents of this book in the way it seems like you can.
Well, it just seems like that. I feel like when I keep in mind if I say everything is Abel, like the actual brother of Cain, um, there's this it puts this extra weightiness on it. Um, but then also it makes everything else is like sacramental in a way. Everything else is kind of on the altar. So it's like everything, all of creation is a gift from God, and it's all kind of crying back out to God. And yeah, you can't take any of it with you. So everything is able,
Everything
everything.
is a sacrifice.
Yeah, yeah, in a way. It's an offering from God that you offer back to him. And so everything is and are you gonna kill it like are you gonna treat it like you did Abel? Or is it,
So,
or because God's gonna come to you and say, where's your brother? Or what did you do with the talent I gave you? And it's like it's all the same thing, sort of. It's like
yeah.
yeah, so the talent God gives you is sacramental in that way. It's like a holy gift from God. And then it like takes the whole book where before it's like, oh, it's fleeting, it's meaningless, and like none of those really get at the core of it. Because then when Jacob was like, no, this actually is Abel's name, and then I'm like, oh man, yeah, that's heavy stuff. That's like everything is that talent that God gives you that he's gonna be like asking you about later.
So as he's going through and he's saying, I tried work, I tried pleasure. He's and I found all of this has to go in the altar and go back to God.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
what
it
he's
was.
saying when he's saying all of this is vanity. He's saying all of this is a sacrifice that has to ultimately return to the Lord. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think that's at least partly what I'm saying. I mean, I do think there's an aspect of coming at it from the traditional side of like where it's meaningless, like you can't hold on to it. Like, and it is like, yeah. So there is this if you hoard it for yourself or try to hold on to it yourself, like you can't actually do that, and it will cry out back to God, or um he'll demand a reckoning for it at some point. So it just takes everything. I don't know. It makes everything weightier for me. And I don't know that, and maybe that's why, because the story of Abel doesn't map on like in some really specific way. It's just kind of having it going on in the back of my head, like everything is Abel, like everything is, it's from God, it's returning back to God. I can't take it for myself. I don't own it. It's all a gift from Him. And then it's like, am I gonna take it out in the field and kill it, or am I like, yeah, but everything's like I'm Cain in this scenario, and what am I going to do to Abel type thing? Like, am I going to, anything could be Abel. Like, it could be like this is my camera, but this camera here, it's like, this is a gift from God. Am I going to just, like, am I actually going to take care of it? Am I going to use it? Am I going to sort of like that, I guess? Because it's all comes from God. So it's all calling back to Him. I guess I see what you mean. It really doesn't, to try to map it on in a particular way doesn't really make sense. But if you think of like when I think of the story of Cain as well, it's like the whole world becomes haunted. Like if you were actually Cain and you kill your brother and you bury him in the ground. And so everything you're doing, you're one who tills the soil. Like that's your job, is your, sorry, the cat wants out. Oh, he's pretending to want out, and I just put him in. All right, Wilson. Yeah, he did want out. Oh, so like if if I was Cain and I killed my brother and put him in the ground, and then I'm a tiller of the ground, then everything I'm living off of from the ground is crying out Abel. It's like his blood. God said, your blood, where is your brother? And then he says, your brother's blood is calling to me from the earth. So it's like everything in reality, everything you look at, all the material world is like your brother at that point, and the whole world is haunted, and everything is Abel. Everything is Abel. Because Abel's down there, and everything coming up from down there is connected to him in a way. Does that make
Everybody
sense?
is everybody Cain?
No, I don't think you have to be. I don't know. I hope not. Maybe probably to some degree, I guess, right? I don't know. I'm
So
probably
it's
doing a
like
terrible
Abel wouldn't be haunting everything unless I were Cain.
unless you kill. Yeah. Unless you actually were Cain, unless you actually
It
killed
does
your
make me
brother.
think of Paul's bit in Philippians where he talks about even if I'm being poured out like a drink offering uh, on the sacrifice and service coming from your faith, I'm glad and rejoice with all of you. It makes me think of even if the even if these sacrifices are ultimately, so it's like if Abel made his sacrifices and he ultimately died anyway, it's kind of like the experience that the preacher's having in Ecclesiastes, because he, even when he's doing everything that's appropriate, when he's living according to wisdom, he realizes he's still going to die. Um, and for him, it's like, oh, this is, maybe he's saying, this is just like Abel. He did everything right before the Lord, but he's still perished.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're bringing that other side to it. I hadn't thought of it like that.
Well, and then Paul fleshes it out in the end. He has the conclusion of the matter when he said, even if I am being poured out like a drink offering, I'm still glad and I rejoice. So even if, and Paul connects that being poured out elsewhere, I think in Timothy with his own death. So it's like, even if I do die, uh, as long as I'm being poured out as an offering to you, then it really has been worthwhile.
Hmm.
Which is the experience of Abel. Like, uh, although he died, his, what is it in 11? He was commended as righteous, and he still speaks even though he's dead. I don't know that he has eternal life in some sense,
Mm-hmm.
which is the whole, or at least in my estimation, the whole problem of Ecclesiastes.
Is wrestling with the existentialism of it, I guess, the kind of
Uh, yeah.
and the fleetingness of this life,
Mm-hmm.
and how to weigh those out.
Mm-hmm. And the only way to weigh it out is as Paul is doing. It's like, I'm being poured out as a drink offering for you, so I'm glad, even though I'm being poured out.
Mm.
And so maybe that was the experience of Cain, and maybe that's the sense in which everything is. I mean, maybe there's the experience of Abel. Maybe that's the sense in which everything is Abel. I don't know. I'm glad you keep bringing it up because it's sort of a challenging notion for me.
I'm glad you brought up that other side to it too. Like everything is, like you could look at it the other way around as the preacher. The preacher could be kind of a Cain figure or an Abel figure or even a neutral, like somewhere in between that. I guess could be an Adam figure. That'd be weird. Try to look at it that way too.
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that other side to it too. Like even if it kind of kind of reminds you of Job. That's what kind of seems like. I do everything by the book, everything right, and still didn't work out for me. Everything's fleeting.
Yeah, and that still sort of checks with, I always pair Proverbs and Ecclesiastes in my head, you know. And it's still the conclusion. It's still like live by the Proverbs, but uh know that the 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 promised outcomes, uh I don't know, maybe they're occurring on a higher plane, or uh, maybe they're not necessarily occurring, even though the equation still stands. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just hitting a light bulb with you here. I think we got
Yeah,
to like I think we read 4:1 through 4 last time.
that's a great metaphor. Did we get that part recorded though? The hitting the light bulb? I don't know if we did.
I don't know either.
I don't know. Anyways, if we didn't, Mitch said what we're like in this read through of Ecclesiastes is like moths banging against a light bulb.
Sort of, it's sort of every time we say it, just like
Yeah, and it's never quite going. The light bulb is never quite getting into here. It's just hitting the
At
outside.
least we're at and around the light. This is maybe as best we can have.
Yeah. Who knows? We might go into the flame and just burn.
Oh mercy.
Yeah, it's really. I don't know. It's kind of interesting because I mean I feel like this book is to me it's like the most meaningful book of the Bible. I know I've said that a bunch, but I don't think it was the first time I read it. I think the first time I read it, it was just kind of like, what the heck? Like, probably the way
Well,
most people read it.
I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know the experience that most people have with this book. But when I first read it, I felt seen, you know, like, finally, like this tracks,
Yeah, yeah.
this really hits with what the
That's funny.
the experience I'm having. You spark up every tree, and it had that. It's nice to read it as like an angsty teenager, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't
That's
believe
what's
it
weird.
was in the Bible,
Yeah, I know. I think
because
most
I
people
knew
can.
the like a time to be born stuff. Like I'd heard that a lot, but beyond and some other parts, but beyond that, I had heard it taught on very little. And so the first time that I read it for myself, I was really shocked in a good way.
I don't think I've ever heard it taught on. I've heard it quoted, like you said, little
I have
pieces.
since heard it taught on some, although not in its totality, but in ways that transcend that famous litany in chapter 3.
Yeah, because it's just like, I mean, that's one of the reasons I don't know. Like when you read it and you're like, everything is vanity, vanity, everything is meaningless. I don't know that meaningless is very helpful. Like I think if I would have read it meaningless, I probably would have been pretty confused. I don't really know. I think
So
I would
you
have
read
had
it
to look up.
vanity to begin with, right?
And then I
Or
think
did you think it was like vanity as in
like vain, like puffed up. No, I don't know what I thought. I think I just went up and looked up the Hebrew word or something shortly after because I was like, I don't know what he's because vanity seems uh, a strange word to use there for me. Like I think I would probably use if I were writing, I would probably put like fleeting or something. Like if I was trying to get across the idea,
of
like I
able?
can't hold on to something, or everything is breath or air or something like that. But
The reason it's so meaningful for me is because it's translated meaningless. I'm sure I would
really,
have, yeah, yes.
say more about that, man. That's super interesting.
Oh, it's just the same old thing, man. It's just that I do receive reality as meaningless when I'm intellectually honest. Like what the intake that I'm getting, it's
Mhm.
coming in here and it's just like jumbling up together. Uh, like
Then you have to make sense of it.
and so it's nice for me to hear that it is in fact the experience of, you know, like the wisest man alive, that he also had this experience. And
That's
it
fun.
makes me think that it might be inevitable, and it makes me think again that you have to defer to the ultimate perspective. So that's all. That's why it was so meaningful to me
Oh,
too.
that's good. Yeah, no,
Well,
I think that's good. I don't know. There seems to be a lot of different ways to read this, but I like what you said at the end because that's what I was thinking. I was like, if I were to just take that so very black and white as everything is meaningless, meaningless, then I don't know why I would come to the conclusion at the end of fear God and keep His commandments because this means all. I'd be like, well, why do I need to do that? Everything's meaningless.
yeah, it's
You
just like
know,
that's your only hope. Like
that's your only option. Yeah.
if you just have to trust the one to whom it is meaningful,
Yeah, and that's it. I think, and I
and
think I
trust the
mentioned this.
resources he's given. What did
Yeah.
you mention?
Well, I think I mentioned this in one of our previous episodes too, is when I talked to Dara, and that was one of the things that stood out to me a lot in our conversation is he said you have to trust the fruit to God as well. And so it's like that feels very in line with this book as well. Like when it was we were going through chapter 2 and he was like, I could leave it to some buffoon afterwards. And it's like there's a way like not only your works that you're doing here, you're trying to do them according to what you perceive as good and trusting God that he's helping you perceive what's good. But then even that those works after you're gone, you have no control over them. And so you still have to trust the fruit later down the road to God. Because that's a horrifying thought too. Because I mean, you could write something and then someone could take it the opposite of how you meant it and go, I don't know, start a war or
Well,
something.
that's the thing, and you still, no matter what, you have to do something. That's in the talents too. It's like I heard you're a hard master, so I just didn't do anything. Like
Yeah,
you need to do something.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then I liked in Malachi we read earlier this morning. You have spoken arrogantly against me, said the Lord. Yet you ask, what have we said against you? You have said it is futile to serve God. What do we gain by carrying out His requirements and going about like mourners before the Lord Almighty? It's like even when it's not obvious that you gain something, yeah, you have to trust the fruit of the Lord because it's not if it wasn't obvious to you how to proceed and then you're given instructions on how to proceed, and then you trust yourself once again to test whether or not the way you've proceeded has borne good fruit. I don't know. It's a lot of trust. It's a dangerous amount of trust.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's what I mean. There's like trust, and I think there's reverence too that goes in with it because it's like I think the trust has to be when we're talking about works at least. I feel like it has to be kind of woven together with like gratitude and reverence or something like that too. Because it even makes me think of like when you're talking about the talent, it makes me think of Adam in the garden, and he's given this one thing to tend and keep it, kind of like Cain is. He comes to Cain and he's like, "Where's your brother?" And he says, "Am I my brother's keeper?" It's like that wasn't my job to tend and keep him. And it's like, but God's like, no, you're wrong. So it's kind of whatever God has committed to your hand is like there's a gratitude of being thankful for it, and then there's like this holy reverence of like, oh, this is my talent that I've got. I shouldn't go bury it in the ground. I should at least try to do something with it. And then, yeah, I don't know.
We don't know. Do you want to read?
Sure. Where did we leave off? The
I
value
think
of
we
a
left off
friend?
at 4:4.
Oh, really? I thought we were farther than that.
Yeah, because remember we talked about
Not existing for a long time.
people being oppressed and it'd be better, yeah, if you'd not been born.
All
But
right. Get to the sad part.
I'll do 5 and 6.
All right.
Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Better one handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind.
Makes sense of that one, man.
So if I just take 5, I think, okay, this is about lethargy or slothfulness, right?
Uh-huh.
If you
That's
fold
what
your
I
hands,
get.
you ruin yourselves. And then 6 is a matter of contentment, perhaps.
Yeah, I think you're right. That makes sense. Better handful. Mine says a handful with quietness. Was that what yours said?
With tranquility, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of this you can have your handful and not be. 'Cause if you're trying to grasp it or hold it too hard, you're just grasping for the wind because you can't. You don't even
Mm-hmm.
know if you're going to be around here tomorrow.
Yeah, so don't trade more stuff for less peace. But these are both sort of working against each other. Because on one hand, it's like, don't do nothing and be lazy. And on the other hand, it's like, don't work too hard.
because you're working for the wind.
So just work just the right amount.
Oh, Solomon, he would say something like that.
What a goof.
It's so
Dude, I
wise.
can't believe it. We've understood this perfectly, the words of the teacher.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Then I
Keep going.
returned. Then I returned and I saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone, without companion. He has neither son nor brother, yet there is no end of all his labors, nor is his eye satisfied with riches. But he never asks, for whom do I toil and deprive myself of good? This also is vanity and a grave misfortune. I'm interested in that last part. It's not grasping for the wind anymore. It's a grave misfortune.
Yeah, her miserable business.
Oh, is that what yours says? I like that. I wonder what the message says. We should be doing the message. I'm going to look it up.
What's the opposite of the message? The King James.
Probably. Oh no, we're in chapter 4, aren't we? Let's see. Ecclesiastes 4. Let's see. 9 through. What did I just read? No, I read 7 through 8.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I turned my head and saw yet another wisp of smoke on its way to nothingness. A solitary person, completely alone. No children, no family, no friends, yet working obsessively late into the night, compulsively greedy for more and more, never bothering to ask, why am I working like a dog, never having any fun? And who cares? More smoke, a bad business.
A bad business. So
I love the
really,
message, man. It's great.
yeah, it is beautiful. You know, it makes me think it's just think about what you're doing. I mean, if you're gonna be in, obviously there's the literal thing going on here of a person who doesn't have anything to hand down. Not that it matters if he did, because we've already found that you don't know what your son's going to do with what you do. So it's really just to consider the why of what you're doing, what you're doing, the why of what you're doing.
But do you think, here's a question. So do you think even the handing down though could it just be an emphasis? I mean, we haven't been back in chapter 2 for a while when he said all this stuff, but could it be an emphasis on like more material things? Like you're going to hand down the things from your labor, and if you don't actually hand down values that go along with it, who knows what your kid's going to do with it? Do you think he could be saying something like that? Because I mean, if you were to teach, I mean, you could give your child millions and millions of dollars, and if you taught him the value of work or something, he might be able to handle that better or something. It kind of reminds me, where's that part in Genesis where it talks about Abraham and God's like, it says something, for I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of the Lord to do righteousness and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, those would be the more meaningful things to pass down, the way of the Lord. But
That's really true, man. I think that and this is written with his progeny in mind, isn't it?
maybe, probably, I mean, I would think so. And if you're just thinking about the things you can give to your offspring, just the things, material things you can leave them, it's like, what good is that? You're just giving them. What is it? What did we just read? You're just giving them a bad business. More
Mm-hmm.
smoke, more smoke, a bad business.
I think you're really right to redirect that concept to material things, because it does seem like we get instruction to pass down righteousness and righteous wisdom and fear of the Lord. Uh, so I shouldn't go about thinking of, I don't know. It is true that I don't know whether or not, if I'm handing down wisdom that it's going to be put to good use.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you never really know. There always has to
Proverbially,
be
it's
this.
true, but
Yeah.
not in every case.
It kind of almost reminds me a little bit about, for some reason, kind of this whole topic reminds me about when Sherry's talking about that story from George MacDonald's The Wise Woman. Um, and I know it hits her on another level. It does me, and she'll like, because she'll say it, and then she won't explain any of it, and it's just like she's so blown away by this, and I'm like, I know it hasn't hit me quite the way it's hit her, but when there's those two little girls, and one of them's like picking flowers, and one of the girls I think wants flowers for herself, and she's like, "Yo, no, you can't. You'll kill them." And she's like, "Well, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, I lift them." Like something where like it feels like in the enjoyment of the flower, you're just living it and letting it live, and it's like this weird where you're not holding on to it. You're not, because as soon as you try to hold it for yourself, it's like you're killing it. You're killing it. You're not living it anymore. You're not just enjoying it and having the experience of life, knowing it's that feels very ecclesiastical to me. Like you can pick the flower and enjoy it and live it and not uh kill it. Because if you go pick it and put it in your vase or something, it's like you're not really, you're just gonna watch it wither and die, sort of, you know. I don't know. I shouldn't say that because people really do that and they enjoy it and it brings life to their house for a while. But this, I don't even know if I'm making sense. That's what I mean, where it hasn't hit me on the level it's hit her because I can't articulate it.
What makes you think of it?
Of Sherry saying that,
Hmm.
because I think she gets it. She really gets it. I think she really in it, and I think it's something like this whole book where he's like, um, where it's this wave of like enjoy the flower, partake of the flower, love the flower, but know that it's, you know, you can't take it with you, and so it's like you're not holding on to it at all. Like there's no attachment or suffocating of it. It's just like I'm just gonna, you know,
I see that wave as more enjoy the flower, enjoy the flower. Oh wait, I can't because it's gonna wither.
it's like a bipolar thing to you. The wave is
Well, you're saying
bipolar.
enjoy it, but don't hang on to it because it's gonna wither, and in that way you can truly enjoy it. And I'm saying I'm trying to enjoy it, but I can't because it's gonna wither.
That is a very bleak way of looking at it. Yeah,
Well, not for me because I don't think it ultimately will wither.
you don't think it will
Not ultimately, no.
because of the resurrection or something.
Exactly right.
That's a good way of looking at it. But
That's
I
why
think, yeah, but
Ecclesiastes
that's
isn't bleak for me because I.
because it redirects your focus towards the eternal, right?
Mhm.
That's what it does for me too. That's why I think it's the most meaningful book because it's always like even you saying that, it's like you you recognize the greater end or something, or I don't know.
Well, it's like this is an image of of what your thought processes would be had you no notion of eternal life. And of course, you do. Uh, Eternity is in your heart, uh, but you might lose faith in it. And if you lose faith in it, then you're going to run this exact gauntlet of trying to find meaning where there simply cannot be meaning, because there is no meaning where there is death, true death.
Yeah. So I have a question then, going off of that. If you had if you came across somebody and met with them, someone you knew who didn't really believe in God and was really struggling with nihilism, would you recommend this book to them?
Oh, that's a fun question.
Because I feel like they would either kill themselves or they would really come to God. I don't know that it's weird.
Interesting to see what they do at the conclusion. Well, yeah, you think it's like, okay, yeah, that's the experience I'm having. That's the experience I'm having. Now the conclusion, what's it going to be for your God? I don't even believe in him. This is nothing for me. Acknowledge that. What is it in the 12 steps?
Oh, acknowledge the higher power or something like that,
Yeah,
or a
your
higher
dependence
power.
on a higher power to get you out of the situation.
I don't know that. Part of me thinks I
I just
wouldn't,
tell
but
them to
that's
pick a high power.
uh, part of me thinks I would. Like, I don't think I would uh have a problem with giving this to someone that struggles with nihilism if I were to just say, read it again, read it again, read it again, because that was my experience with it. At least, like, I read it and I still don't think it clicks up here, like you said, where I'm like hitting a light bulb. Like, it hasn't clicked up here yet. But for some reason, it was one of these books where, like, I read it and then I read it again and I read it again, and I could just feel it changing something inside of me, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But it was like, that's the only way I know how to describe it now, is it was realigning my focus um, to more eternal things, to what's truly meaningful. And it's
Mm.
like, it's not about see, it's like this weird contradiction. I was about to say it's not about food and drinking or all this stuff, but then you're like, well, it is, but the reason it is because of communion, because you're doing that with friends, you're doing that with family, you're doing that with, so like those are the more meaningful things. It's not about the actual food, because it's just like, tomato's a tomato, it's gonna rot or whatever. But if you are having like a good meal with family, it's like that's what it's more about. But there is food involved
It's
in
like you
that.
eat and drink unto God. It's right. It's good.
Yeah, would a nihilistic person do
So I would
that? I
recommend
think
this
they would.
to an atheist nihilist.
Yeah,
I think
because I think if nothing else, they maybe would recognize it would cause them to shift their focus on material things, and they would at least recognize the relationships around them maybe more, and be like, this is more meaningful, or this is uh maybe not, though. I don't know.
and
That's
to know that I don't know. I maybe because in my estimation, it's maybe an old fashioned one, but the thing that is going to rescue them from just this nihilistic spiral is the Lord. And if anything, this demonstrates that uh, these feelings and these experiences and these thoughts are not, they're anticipated by the Lord. You know, they're
yeah, that's really good.
I don't know.
No,
Uh,
that's really good.
this is a miserable business.
More smoke, bad business. You want to read some more?
Hey man, yes I do. Have you asked yourself the question, for what are you toiling?
For what am I toiling? I have actually asked that question a lot. I wrote down two things. I wrote wisdom, and then I wrote Philippians 3:8. Because I have actually asked that question a lot, especially after my dog died, because I was like, dude, I don't have kids, I don't have a wife, I don't even have a dog anymore. What am I doing? All this toil. I have nobody. Um, so it was wisdom was one, because
3:8.
she's a beautiful lady.
She is
That's my only lady I got. And then the other one was the Philippians, what is it?
3:8.
Yeah, but I count all these, but what things were gained to me, these I have counted loss for Christ. Yet indeed I count all things lost for the excellence of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things, that I may gain Christ. So that's the only other thing I can think of, is the uh I mean, there's more of that now, but I think, you know, all the toil, everything doing here is for that I may gain Christ and be found in him.
Yeah,
And
that's
not
beautiful.
But it's weird too, because like the more I come to know that, and the more I come to know Christ, it's like it's not just some weird selfish of thing of uh getting, like, just being after just this one person, this one man, or one idea or something. And then it's like, then you see Christ in all the different people too. You see God in his creation. And I don't know, it's just really led me to a different place. And even with Romans 8 now, like the whole creation is groaning. It's like, in a way, that all of creation is God's body, because it all came from him. And I mean, I know there's corrupt, wicked parts to it, but it's like that's what it's groaning for. So even that is like, man, even the pursuit of that is kind of something else. I think that's through the pursuit of Christ, and seeing the way that how all things are found in him and how he holds all things together, I think kind of makes me almost pursue that the reconciliation of all things too in that way. Yeah, so that's what I got. Have you asked yourself that? Same question. For whom do you toil and deprive yourself of good? This smoke and this bad business.
On my best days, mm, I would like to have the same answer as you. I think that Philippians 3:8 was a great place to go for answering the question. Other days, I toil for that uh, which thieves can break in and steal.
Yeah, well, if we're being
Moths.
totally honest, I do the same thing, of course. But I mean, when I read this verse, that's
Yes,
what I've written down.
if you have to put an answer down on a piece of paper, that's I can't imagine a better one than Philippians
If
3:8.
I'm
That's
yeah, if I'm not walking
really
around in my
stirring.
delusional state, if I'm actually like thinking about it in a really meditating on that question, wait, what am I doing here? I think I would, but yeah, in my day to day, it's probably more, yeah,
How do you know Christ, man? How do you gain Christ?
gosh, it's tough. It's a good question.
And you know the answer. You're the only one that can teach me this.
The only one. For God so loved the world. No, I think I mean it's weird because it's like the answer is like the most simplistic answer that Christians have always gave. I think you receive them into your heart. But then if you actually ask what that means, you can get into the depths of that unending. Because it's like to me that means gosh, well, you really have to look at the whole story. Because part of me just wants to say it's receiving God's forgiveness. But I think you need all the imagery of Christ on the cross, the suffering, everything that involved, and then just being like, this is the God man, and this is what we did to him. And then he, while we were yet still sinners, he died for us. And it's like receiving that spirit, whatever spirit that was there at that moment, that unconditional love that went to that degree and that level. It's receiving that into your heart, how incredibly humbling that is, and how through that humility, it it recreates, like it baptizes you in that humility and recreates you into like this new, hopefully a Christian, a new Christ follower, and then that same love would flow out to you, to other people.
So in receiving the I don't know how to talk about this, but in receiving the imagery and hearing the story, when I hear that and I believe it, then I receive that spirit.
I think so, yeah. I mean, because I really think it's probably as simple as that. Because like kids do this, like if you
I
just
was
tell
gonna
a
say,
kid,
I would have said, I read my, how can I know Christ? Read your Bible and pray. I was like the most simplistic answer of all time.
yeah. I mean, it's like kids, it affects them. Like it's weird. It's not. I
It's
maybe
very
it didn't.
true.
But then I grow up and I'm like, well, I never knew any of this stuff. I never thought about it that much. But like, if I were to ask my nieces and nephews, like, do you believe in Jesus? They know the story of Jesus, and then they would say, yeah, I accepted him into my heart. And then I don't know that I have to ask them what that means to them. But there is some weird like somberness that goes along with it too, where they know that it's I don't know. It's hard. It's like it's not an intellectual thing for them either. It's I don't know what it is.
That's
Yeah.
exactly true. And that's why for so long I you know, you hear a lot of times in this, so for a long time I would say something like, uh I was raised in church, but I became a Christian, I think, at this indiscernible time. But then I realized, like when I was very small and I understood nothing, like I did believe, like
Mhm.
I I I believed what I was hearing, and my belief was really simplistic and not very, well, it wasn't theologically sound certainly, but it was very very real, and
Yeah.
uh,
It
that it's incredible, to to look back at how you believed when you were a child.
Yeah. It's insane too, because you're like, you don't have to, like, even me saying, oh, describing that event on the cross and like going into the implications of forgiveness and how humbling that is. It's like a child doesn't get all that, but then you can just say, you tell them the story of Jesus, ask them if they believe it, and ask for Jesus to come into their heart. And then you can just say something like, what would Jesus do? And it's like, they know, like it somehow, I don't know how it happens, but they're like if they were fighting with their siblings or something, you'd be like, what would Jesus do? And then they'd be like, well, I need to share. I need to love them. I need to forgive them. It's like all of this is like somehow embedded in that Christian story that they just get intuitively.
But
It's
it's
quite
like you
strange.
can't, unfortunately, it's like you can't stay there. Which is, it's kind of like with the wisdom comes sorrow thing, because it's like you do have to grow in wisdom, and and where you take milk for a while, there should come a point where you have solid food, and
Hmm.
it's kind of sad, because you miss the simplicity. I mean, that's true. And just when you look at, like, I miss the simplicity of being a kid versus the the shoulder cross of being an adult. You do have to grow, and you don't stay there forever.
Yeah.
And then now that you're eating solid food, you pass the milk back down. I don't know. I don't know what we're even talking about now. Oh yeah, you're explaining to me how to know Christ.
You asked me. I don't know. I hope I know, but it's always one of those things like you know and you don't know because it's like that I may know Christ, and it's like, yeah, am I really ever gonna get to the bottom of that thing?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
But
I don't think
everything, that's what you toil for. That's a great thing to toil for.
yeah, and I think the reason what's almost satisfying to me now is that it is unending. Like the depths and the heights of the love of Christ is something that as long as creation is still happening, that's still going to be going higher and lower and stretching itself. And so it's like, I don't know, what can we forgive? Like, how far can that go? How do we do this thing here?
We'll
I
see.
don't. All right, go on, man.
9,
You
10,
read this. You
11,
read the
12.
sad part. Yeah.
Oh, this is good. Two are better than one. That's us, bro. Because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone?
This is
The
us.
one, yeah, the one may be overpowered. Two can defend themselves when we're camping in 17 degrees.
Okay, all right.
A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Okay, so this is another one that actually does come up a lot, uh, I think, in teachings.
Is it just because of the Trinity thing, the last part, or is it?
No, I think
Okay.
just the sort of iron sharpens iron kind of
Ah,
sensibility, sticking together and not trying to go it alone. So this one, yeah, for me, this one came up a lot growing up.
that's good. I don't think I heard it very much. I don't think I ever really heard Ecclesiastes other than when I read it growing up. Maybe I did.
It's nice, though, huh?
It is, yeah.
Stick
It's good.
together.
It's good. Yeah.
This is so simple, man. This book is so uh, per, per, perspicuous. Is that what Cal said? And
Oh, I don't even remember. How can one be warm? The one may be overpowered by another. Two can withstand him. Are you still reading Fantasies?
yeah, I've got like 30 pages left. What's gonna make me finish it?
Did you get to the the brothers?
Yes and no. You alluded to something with the brothers that wasn't obvious to me. I got to this dream he had of the brothers in his
Yeah.
childhood,
There's
but
a part after that where he meets like these people. But anyway, I think
it,
you'll really like that part.
is it like this? They stick together?
Yeah, it's very good. No, it's really good. I think you'll like it a lot.
I think I'm
It's
gonna
good.
like it. I
Yeah, yeah.
just look, I got it right here. I
Did you
just
get so you went
need
through
to
he
finish it.
nice. So you went through the let's see, the Adore. Sorry, now I'm
I
getting
went through door
distracted.
number one, and he came back, and that I haven't gone back out again.
Oh, okay. My favorite's I think door number three. It could be door number two, but
Well, I like door
yeah,
number three because it's not quickly broken.
door
Although,
number three.
although with door number two, you can keep warm as well.
Gosh, I gotta keep reading this book. I started over again. I don't know where I'm at now.
I can't believe how long
39.
it's taken me to finish it. I wonder. I think you sent it out to several people. Has anyone finished it? Has John
John
or
read through
Craig?
it.
Or,
I don't know if Craig finished it. I think he was at least almost done. Everybody at some point, because we didn't get very far in our discussion. So I think everybody was like, well, just keep reading it, and then when we go back, we'll just reread the chapter or something. But
that's
I
why
know
I'm so
John finished.
excited about. That's why I'm not excited. But like I just really want us to finish Ecclesiastes. I don't know if we
Yeah,
will or
no.
if it'll fall off like
But
Exodus
like
and Fantastes.
well, hopefully we go back to Fantasties. That thing is just I like Fantasties, especially when uh I don't actually like talking about the text as much, but I feel like we so far have kind of done a good job of that where we'll kind of
Just
bring up the
react to it.
chapter and then then it's like brings up different questions and ideas and things like that. But I really, if nothing else, I want to at least go to the Cosmos story and see what you guys think about that.
That's a killer story. It really sticks
Yeah.
in your brain.
I think like everybody else gets more out of it than I do. That's why I want to revisit it because it was not my favorite part of the book. Like every time I got to read that story, it's probably one of my least favorite parts, if I'm being honest. I don't know why that is. I love the story. I think it's absolutely fascinating, but for some reason, I'm just like, I mean, I love the story. It's just like if I had to rate them all, it's probably not on my top in
There's
that
almost
in
no
there.
story. It's like an open world RPG or something, you know?
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
just like wandering in and out of these different rooms and like
yeah,
different parts of the woods, different houses.
yeah, yeah.
He's like, he stops to read a book for like 10 pages.
So he can throw in another story within his story. Then I read
Mhm.
this book, and there's this little mini story within the story, and it's like,
He's so unhindered by the narrative that he's putting forth.
yeah, it's great. All
Mhm.
right, you want me to keep going?
Keep
Maybe we can
going.
get through chapter four. Better a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who will be admonished no more, for he comes out of prison to be king, although he was born poor in his kingdom. I saw all the living who walk under the sun. They were with the second youth who stands in his place. There was no end of all the people over whom he was made king. Yet those who come afterward will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and grasping for the wind. Ends a little bleak. Reminds me of Joseph.
In what way? Because they forgot about him
Well, he comes out of
after
prison.
time in Egypt.
Yeah, that and he comes out of prison to be king.
Yeah.
He's like a second born in a way, like the older serves the younger type thing. There was the second youth, and he stands in his place. Yeah, better a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who will be admonished no more.
This is strange.
Old dogs can't learn new tricks. Is that what it's saying? I'm just kidding. What's strange
Maybe.
about it? What do you mean?
It just doesn't end how I think it's going to. They follow the successor, but then those who came later are not pleased with the successor. It's always so. I guess it is sort of always out with the old, in with the new.
Hmm.
You have your day in the sun, but ultimately they're going to turn on you. I'm not looking forward to that. The day that
Yeah,
I'm no longer relevant. I'm hardly relevant now, but I have a circle, you know.
yeah, yeah. The ending's pretty weird. I'm not quite sure what to do with it.
What do you find is your experience with the way people react to the elderly in your life? You know, because it feels like it's just like, you know, there'll be times like you listen, it's like, oh yeah, yeah. But sometimes you have a sort of reverence towards them, and other times you have a sort of like you just humor them. What is your experience?
Yeah, um it seems like that. I don't know. I try to not actually take the I'll just humor him side ever, but it seems like that does happen, especially
Hmm.
maybe more so with, I was about to say people younger than me, and maybe that's just because it's a greater divide. But then I don't know that. Um, trying to think, but I don't know that it's always just a humoring. Sometimes it's actually an argument or something. But um, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. A lot of times, I think I personally feel like I'm kind of stuck in the middle, trying to appreciate both and see both sides, and feel like it's like trying to hold on to tradition, or at least the goods that are in it, and then trying to uh, understand the new thing that's coming up with a new generation, and the good that's in that.
Hmm.
And honestly, man, the thing that is just that I almost have very little patience for. I don't yell at people over it, but the thing that like gets me the most is the pride and arrogance that just comes out. It can come out from both sides, you know. But
You think that's characteristic of the elderly?
no, I think it's characteristic of the young rebels. I mean, I did the same thing where you get to this point in your life and you're like, oh, I know better. And it's like, do you really? Like, really? Like, you might know better than your parents and the people who went before you. But it's like you need to really, really wrestle with that before you just go like throwing it all out. Because I mean, that's like, I did that because I think I may be one of those people too where I'd want to find out for myself. Someone's like, don't do this, and it's like, well, I'll go do it and try it, see what happens. Um, but
You
it's
think
which is maybe, and some people are built that way, so some people I think have to do that, I guess. But there's a when it gets into this spiteful bitterness, that's where I'm like, you I never really yelled at anybody before, but I'm just like, just watch that. Or if I see a younger person getting upset with the elderly, or almost vice versa, it's like I feel like I'm just always trying to, that's the one thing where I'm like, just don't get bitter, like just don't get bitter, that'll you'll find yourself in hell.
I know you love Hook, and do you watch much of Spielberg?
uh I don't know what much is. I
He did. I guess he's had 30 something films, like 33, I think.
Okay, I've probably seen a good
Indiana
portion, but I don't know.
Jones and Jurassic Parks.
Yeah,
You've seen those, and
yeah.
okay, well,
Star Wars,
he
are you gonna
just
leave those out?
he didn't do Star Wars.
What, I thought he did with Lucas. What, didn't he do the first ones?
They sort of like riffed on each other with it, but ultimately he did.
Oh, oh man, shows how much I know.
Uh, well, look, he does this movie this year called The Fablemans. That's about his life.
I haven't seen that one.
It just came out. But he said the whole like thesis for him for the movie was like telling the story of how he first began to see his parents as human beings, and that's the real trick, I guess. Is like you almost see them as like these, they owe me something, and they do in a sense. You know, they brought you into the world, and they're bound to rear you, and so when they when they betray you in some way, it really is a betrayal. It's not a betrayal, but it's like the same betrayals that you're going to be prone to in your life. Like seeing seeing any given seeing people as human beings, and then remembering that you yourself are a human being is huge. But it's like the whole like thesis of so many of his movies is like the broken family unit, and like the parent child relationship.
I have to watch for that more. I don't know that it is that in Jurassic Park too, the first one or something.
Definitely in the third one. I don't know if it's as much in the first one.
Hmm.
But
Well, I
a
mean,
lot
you
of
have the Grant who's with his girl and they don't want kids or something, or
right,
then
yeah.
he ends up wanting kids later. I think
That's so interesting.
the kid aspect.
Well, it's definitely in Hook, you know, just
Yeah, yeah. There's a betrayal that happens in the beginning. Not in. I don't know if it happens in Hook. I mean, probably you can draw it out with the him not making the baseball game or something. But in Peter Pan, um, is the dad is one of the little kids, I think, has to take medicine, and the dad is supposed to take his medicine, but he hates taking his medicine. He's supposed to like a daily thing, like an adult would take their vitamins or something. And so then he ends up hiding it somewhere. And Wendy's like, "Oh, I know where it is." So she goes and gets it for him. He's frustrated. And then when the kid's taking his, he like throws it over his back real quick or something, and they call him on it. And he like the dad gets so mad, and the kid's just like hurt, because it's just like the dad's so obsessed with good form, and then he goes and does something like that, and you're like, and then that same thing. There's like a moment in when he's fighting Peter Pan that he kind of does the same thing, and it's just like bad form hug. Yeah, yeah. Then it's this weird like hypocrisy and betrayal of the child's trust, because the child's like, okay, I'll take mine as you take yours, and then he doesn't do it, and
So this is mostly the back and forth between parent and child, and it goes both ways. That they're each holding each other to a standard that neither of them can truly keep.
yeah, that's why I think Wendy's the hero. That's why I think the mother is the hero. That's why I think that's probably my most frustration when it comes to like
In the hook
the
story.
well, oh, in the Hook story and in life. But I think that's one of my most frustrating things when it comes to just the feminine in general. How like hyper feminism. It's like matriarchy, whatever. That's fine, but don't destroy something like that, because that is holding father to son. Like she holds the husband, and she gets married, and you have her holding the husband in her arms, and then after she has a child, she's holding the son in her arms, she's holding the father in her arms again, but in infant form. And it's like, who do you think the mediator is in that relationship? Like the mom is mediating
Huh.
between the father and the son. Otherwise, you know the dad might take Jacob up on the altar and kill him. I don't know.
Yeah. Sarah
I
should have
don't
been
know.
around when Abraham was about to ice Isaac.
Yeah, he probably did it when she wasn't looking.
Yeah.
No, but there's
Um.
this weird thing. Even in Song of Solomon, I hadn't noticed it before, but she says, like, who is her beloved in that? It's like the king, the kingly figure or whatever. But then there's this part where she says, "A beloved, my beloved to me is like a bundle of myrrh that lies all night between my breasts." And so you could either get the image of like he's laying there on her breast, like sleeping at night, and she's kind of like holding him in her arms, the king, or she's just holding an infant. Like she does the same with both in a way. It's just, I don't know. I really think that motherly spirit is like this weird mediating force somehow between the two. But I could be
Let's see.
wrong on that.
I can see what you're getting at here. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound crazy. So back on the elderly thing, do you think it's because that sort of pride happens? One, you could say it's because they witness like a double standard in the parent, like we've alluded to. The other thing is, do you think that often they think that they're out of touch with what's happening, like in society or in culture or in
Yeah. I,
life?
I think it's both. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
think that that's sometimes true, or
I think it's both. I think there's trueness to both of it. Yeah. I mean, the reason I got offended at the church, I don't think I got offended for my parents for this, but the church and like their tradition and stuff was because I noticed hypocrisy. And so I was like, and I think that's what happens normally to a lot of people. You see the double standard, um, and then decide that you're going to be the judge or whatever. So I think there's that, and then I think there is the being out of touch with, and maybe some of that hypocrisy is connected to being out of touch with the next generation, because it's just um, it's hard to relate, and so then it's like in finding it hard. Maybe I'm just talking out loud here, like you can rip off this too. So maybe it's like when you're older and you're finding it hard to relate because the new generation just kind of seems like they're doing absurd things, then you exclude them more, or you're not sure how to include them, and so then in that you're not being loving, like you're not doing what you claim to be living by the church should be doing. I don't really know. I'm not sure if they go both hand in hand, but it seems to be like there's two of those things going on there.
and the two things one more time are
You said that one was like the kind of, it sounded to me like one was the hypocrisy, the double standard, and then the second one was like being estranged or being
Yeah.
from the new generation, which is like it's only probably going to get harder because now people aren't having kids till they're older, and then you got a bigger age gap there, and things are
Yeah, that's a good
changing
point.
so much faster. Things are
That's
just
another good point.
yeah.
So here's something. It's like, okay, so what do we have to do then as people in positions to be authoritative and people in positions to live beneath an authority? Is we have to be willing to accept that our authorities can fail and still, and it doesn't compromise their authority entirely, and that they still have something to offer in spite of not being totally privy to my experience. And then downwards, I have to recognize that the experience you're having might be out of my grasp and verbalize that. No, I just have to be the verbal, I have to verbalize that. It might be out of my grasp, but I still have something to offer. I will make mistakes, but I still have to exercise authority. I don't know, man. It's making me think though. I really can't stop thinking about this idea of of leadership and its necessity and who's going to do it and who's going to be willing to do it. Or the king here, he knows he's going to go out of fashion if he's read this book. The king's going to go out of fashion, but he still has the king. And then as his successor comes along, you better hope that he's at least put the mechanisms in place that this king, who may totally like be dismissive of him, is going to be able to king well too.
That's tough. That's tough. You know what's a weird thing though too is and I don't know if maybe this can you could tie this in with what you're with the question you're asking right now too. But do you think I mean, I feel like I've noticed this. I don't know if this is a true thing, like all around the board, or just, but there seems to be like once the older generations reaches a certain age, they connect with the really young one, like the grandkid and grandparent dynamic. It's like once they hit this grandparent age and all the kids are out of the house, it's like there's this weird return to childlikeness thing that kind of happens, and then they love playing with the grandkids, and it seems like it's a thing, but I could be wrong on that, and I don't know what causes that either.
Does a grandparent in some way become a mediator between child and parent? Or
I don't
because
know.
it doesn't seem the parent would seem like the obvious because it's between them, but it feels like more often because the grandparent is now like sitting on the other side of parenthood and are watching their child have the experience that they just had, raising them right here, and so they're
Yeah,
able to come in and say,
it
you know,
feels like a return to childlikeness to me too, where they get to this point where they're like all this. I don't want to say like it's not. It's like they're just not wrestling with these like with life as much anymore, and it's just like they just come back to just like let's just play and just. It's weird. It's kind of strange. I don't know.
there's something going on that I do see. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately because you know how sometimes you'll look at you sometimes a parent will go into a group of children and make things awkward for their child. They'll embarrass them because they'll just act like
Like a kid, yeah, or
they
something, or
don't understand they're acting out of touch. And
oh,
so it's I thought about that recently because I was socializing, not with my children around, obviously, but I was socializing, and I had something in my brain. I'm like, that's out of touch and uncool. And even though I realized that, I let it come out of my mouth. And I was thinking,
That's so
have they been
funny.
doing this in a self-aware way this whole time? Probably. There's probably some of it where it's like, I just don't get it. But I bet a lot of it it's just like, it's either I get it and I don't care, but that doesn't seem quite right. And it doesn't feel like they want to like intentionally embarrass their children. They'll like a mother will go up into a crowd of kids with their children and just be like, hey, and you're like, what are you doing? Stop. And it's like they know that that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. This is a total rabbit trail. I just got the dinner bell too.
Well, it's a rabbit trail, but it feels like I don't know. It feels necessary to me because it reminds me of Malachi that you're reading, and Elisha. Like if you can figure this out, and turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children, the hearts of the children back to the fathers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's like,
Oh man,
and that's where it feels like where like
we need to talk about that too. But I gotta go.
you gotta go. What? We didn't get that far. At least we got through chapter 4 finally.
We made it all the way
I
through
kind of
chapter
just want to
4.
read through chapter 5 real quick so we can just say we did it. But
No,
then we need to pause
we're gonna be doing this forever. We will never get to the end.
forever
Dude, we need to
because it
bring in
repeats.
chapter 4 of Malachi next time because I like what. But that was 4, wasn't it, or was it 3?
It was, I
About
think,
bringing the
4.
parents. Oh yeah, 4. It's the end of 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
we've
spirit
got
of
to get to that
Elijah
stuff.
or something.
So this is all. This intergenerational stuff is the thing because that's the semblance of eternal life. It's not actually eternal life. It's compromised. We're doomed to. There's nothing new under the sun. We're doomed to repeat these things until we're
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
Life's too short to get it right. I can't in 70 years solve anything great. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Let's forget it.
No,
That's a bad
no,
way
no.
to end.
No, I think you're, I mean, I think there's truth in that. I don't know. But like the weird thing is like you make that statement and I think it's so true, but then at the same time, like I think it's wrong because the answer is something so simple. And I'm like, I just haven't, I either don't know what it is or I haven't properly lived it or integrated it yet.
Is this a
Because
body of death or not, man?
I don't know, man, it shouldn't be, right? It shouldn't be.
But it is. This is a cursed body, right? No, this is bad. I have bad thoughts.
No, don't do it. What's that shirt you're wearing, by the way? You've been working hard.
Rigid.
Nice.
This is a
Nice.
tool company, and I'm a very tool type guy. As everyone always accused me, like, Mitch, you're so into tools and masculine things.
Is that a true statement? It should be.
All right, man. I'm gonna hop off.
Can I
Thanks
can
for
I
everything.
title this episode that?
What?
Mitch, you're so into tools. All right, man. I'll see you. Sorry I'm
Later,
keeping
brother.
you. See you.
Thanks for everything.
You too.